You're listening to the Learn Spanish con Salsa podcast. I'm your host, Tamara Marie. Before we get started with this week's episode, I have to let you know that you have an opportunity this week only to join us for a free Spanish conversation challenge. So if you struggle to find native speakers to talk to on a regular basis, or you just don't feel as confident in your ability to speak Spanish, join our Spanish Conversation Challenge. We're doing it this week only. It's not too late to sign up. SpanishConversationChallenge.com. You'll have an opportunity to chat with our team live to get your questions answered and to help refine your Spanish conversation skills so you sound more like a native speaker. So make sure you sign up this week only. SpanishConversationChallenge.com. Now to this week's episode.
Bienvenidos. Welcome to the Learn Spanish con Salsa podcast,
the show for Spanish learners
that love music,
travel, and culture.
Close your grammar textbooks,
shut down the language apps, and open your ears
to how Spanish is spoken in the real world.
Let us show you
how to go from beginner
to bilingual.
Here's your host,
certified language coach,
Tamara Marie.
Hola y bienvenidos al episodio 236. Welcome to episode 236 of the Learn Spanish con Salsa podcast. I am super excited about today's episode because we are going to solve a mystery. I know a lot of times people are curious about what is their true Spanish level. Now, I know there is the Common European framework for languages, or CFR, that gives you a test for maybe level A1, A2, B1, B2, etc. And a lot of people, when they're thinking about what is my Spanish level, they usually refer to that framework. The only issue I found with that framework is that unless you are actually in an environment where you're speaking Spanish, it's really not a true assessment if you just go online and take a quiz. The only way that you're really going to know that is through a conversational fluency assessment. And that is something that we offer at Spanish con Salsa because we know that even though you're learning the language, you may know a lot of grammar, you may know a lot of vocabulary, but if you can't actually put those words together into sentences and actually talk to another human, and not just a chatbot or texting someone, but actually have a conversation, then you're really not speaking Spanish at all. So you really don't have any conversational fluency if you've never had a conversation. So spoiler alert, you actually do have to speak Spanish to be fluent in Spanish. So what I really wanted to talk about is how to find out exactly where you are with your conversational fluency, and not just, what's your level according to a test or an academic assessment of Spanish. We are really going to look at assessing your Spanish level. So that's what we're going to go over in the podcast today. Now, I will say, if you are interested in having a one-on-one conversation with our team to find out what your Spanish level is, stick around to the end of the episode because I will share a link for how you can actually schedule a one-on-one call with one of our certified language coaches, and they will be able to guide you through a conversational assessment so that you'll really know what your level is. All right, so I want to just make that clear at the outset, but what I'm going to go through in this episode is I'm going to share with you what our conversational fluency levels are, and this is from a language coaching perspective where we really do focus on conversation and conversational fluency. So you may have heard me say before that a language that is not spoken is a dead language. Like, when's the last time you heard someone speak, Sanskrit, right? There are certain languages that like Latin, for example, is a perfect example where even though it's the root and base of many languages, it's not really spoken in day-to-day conversation. Outside of maybe some religious ceremonies and rituals and things like that, you're probably not going to hear Latin spoken on the streets of any country in the modern world. So when you learn a language and don't speak it, again, there's really no path to fluency. So one of the things we really work at is how do we get you over that hump where you're just learning, you're racking up points and levels on Duolingo, but you're not racking up your levels of conversational fluency. So again, chatting with our team, even though I know it might seem intimidating. Our team is super friendly, native Spanish speakers, and they can really help you kind of get over that fear of having a conversation in Spanish. So let's go into the 5 stages of conversational fluency. And again, this really does matter because if you want to get to a level where you can confidently say you're fluent in Spanish, you're going to have to go through this area that we call the messy middle, right? You're not complete beginner in Spanish, but you're not fluent. And where are you really? So that's what we're going to talk about today. How do we pull out a GPS so you can find out where you are on your roadmap to Spanish fluency? All right, to start out, I want to give you the characteristics of what I would call level 0, right? So this is before you even get to the 5 stages. And this is what I call the silent language learner. Now, you know you're at this level because you might be someone who's been quietly learning Spanish. You might even be listening to music, trying to watch TV shows, learning vocabulary, studying flashcards, but you really haven't spoken much or at all. When it comes to saying something even simple like, hola, ¿cómo estás? You feel like you're unsure of yourself, you hesitate, and you just don't want to start a conversation. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not learning. It just means that you're at the stage where you're focused on input. So you're just soaking in the language, but you actually aren't able to produce it confidently yourself. So common traits, if you are at the silent language learner level, is that you might recognize words and phrases, but you're not comfortable speaking them. You might feel nervous or self-conscious about your pronunciation in Spanish. You probably understand more than you can say, and you probably do a lot of listening to Spanish through songs. You might be watching videos. You might be eavesdropping on conversations that you hear in Spanish, but you're still not confident to go up to someone and actually start a conversation in the language. So my suggestion, if you think that this is your level, you really do have to figure out how to break the silence. So you want to start speaking, even if it's just single words and short phrases, you want to say them out loud to yourself, just so you get used to hearing your own voice in Spanish. And the first thing that you want to do, if you want to set a goal, is to learn how to introduce yourself in response to basic questions about yourself in Spanish. That is what you want to do if you're at this level. Now, we do have a free Spanish conversation guide. You can go to SpanishConversationGuide.com. This is perfect if you're at the silent level because it will give you some really common questions and answers that you can practice so that you're really rehearsing your answers to these questions and your ability to ask these questions when you meet someone for the first time. So if you are a silent language learner, I encourage you to go to SpanishConversationGuide.com and then you will learn how do you get to this next step. All right, so after you get through the silent level, we move into our true level 1, and that's the conversation starter. Now, as it sounds, this is someone who is comfortable with starting a conversation in Spanish. So at this level, you're able to carry out a basic conversation, but usually the other person has to speak slowly and clearly. You might even only be used to talking to Spanish teachers or tutors at this point. You know how to introduce yourself. You can answer basic questions like where you're from, how you're feeling. You can ask simple questions of other people. And you're starting to get comfortable with connecting the dots between the things that you hear and some of the responses you can give. Now, at this stage, you probably are only giving maybe one-word answers, and you might still find yourself getting lost a lot when you're having a conversation, but you at least know that you can get through, hola, ¿cómo estás? Estoy bien, gracias. ¿Y tú? Oh, ¿de dónde eres? Right? Very, very basic things. At this level, some common traits are that you know Spanish letter sounds, and you're okay with saying a few common words and phrases. You are able to ask and answer questions about basic and familiar topics, right? Now, you are starting to be able to form sentences and full thoughts on your own, but you still are probably heavily relying on an English translation or Spanglish type of conversation. Okay, so this is, again, conversation starter. This is when you're really just getting over that hump of not speaking at all, and you're jumping into conversations, but you find yourself getting lost very, very quickly. Right? So my suggestion that you focus on, if this is your stage, if you're in level 1, you want to get confident using basic phrases and asking simple questions. So instead of just learning words, sort of like 1 or 2 words at a time, you really want to get comfortable learning conversational phrases. And if you're in our Spanish Conversation Mastery course, we ask you to actually come up with your go-to phrases. So for example, most conversations, there's going to be a greeting. You're probably going to be asking some questions, responding to questions. You'll probably be talking about the weather or some things about your environment. Very, very basic things. And you want to get very, very comfortable with your authentic responses to these. And you want to use the full phrases, not just a 1 or 2 word answer. So that will come through practicing those things, writing them down, and then having practice conversations where you're talking to a language coach or a tutor or a conversation partner, and you're getting corrected when you make mistakes in pronunciation and in your word usage. So you really do want to make it a habit of having conversations on a regular basis. And at this level, I would suggest you push yourself to a goal that you want to be able to have at least a 10 or 15 minute conversation where you're not switching back to English. So that's our level 1. Now, once you get past level 1, you're at conversational fluency level 2, and that is what we call our basic conversationalist. So at this point, you've gone beyond greetings, right? You can ask and answer basic questions. You know how to describe your day and talk about yourself, so long as the conversations are pretty short. At this point, you still understand when people are speaking slowly, and you can respond with pretty decent vocabulary. You probably, again, at this stage, are still understanding more than you're able to say on your own. But you are comfortable holding your own in a short conversation, asking for clarification when you don't understand something, and you're constantly learning new vocabulary, new phrases every day. At this point, you should be able to talk about daily life. You're probably able to use some of the present tense, maybe a little bit of the past tense or future tense for some very basic phrases, but you're really just starting to learn some of the grammar and how it works in conversation. And again, this is not memorizing grammar charts. This is, how am I actually using the present tense to talk about daily life and habits and routines that I have. You're going to be able to understand basic conversations, usually if there's only 1 or 2 people. And again, only if they're really speaking at a slower pace. When someone starts to speak at sort of native speed, then you will still find yourself getting lost at this stage. Now, you are able to have a full conversation in Spanish. You're able to get out full sentences, but you probably still have a lot of pauses where you're thinking, maybe translating in your head, and you're still not 100% confident in your ability, and still get a little bit nervous when you're talking to native speakers. So at this stage, the thing that I would suggest that you do is push yourself to set a goal to have a 30-minute conversation with a native Spanish speaker where you are not reverting back to English. So this means that if you don't understand something, that you ask a question, you ask for them to explain it in a different way. Or if you don't know the vocabulary, instead of looking up the word, you're going to figure out how to describe what you're saying, whether it's a thing that you're referring to or an emotion or anything else. You're going to use the words that you know in order to get around that. Because again, at this stage, your vocabulary is going to be better, but you're still not at a level where you have an intermediate level of vocabulary. So you are going to be saying things like, esa es una cosa, right? Instead of knowing the exact word. Oh, ese es un diccionario, right? So like, oh, that's a thing instead of that's a dictionary. So there's going to be things that you are still learning, but you want to force yourself to use the Spanish you know and not revert to English for a full 30 minutes. And at this phase, it's really good to focus on things that you're interested in. So once you get beyond having these basic conversations, to really push yourself to get to the next level, you want to be able to identify things that are interesting to you so you can talk about and learn vocabulary about things that are relevant to your life. So that's what you really want to push for. So for this 30-minute conversation, you're going to identify a person that you're going to talk to. You'll literally set a timer or set a time frame on your calendar, and have the conversation with a native speaker. Have an idea of what you want to talk about in advance, but just flow with the conversation and make sure that you record it so that you can go back and look at it for feedback if it's a video, or listen to the audio and really be able to critique yourself, and also listen so you can pick up on some things that you might not have caught during the conversation in vivo or live. So that is what you really want to do. If you're stuck at this basic level where you find yourself always saying, hola, ¿cómo estás? Estoy bien, gracias. ¿Cómo está tu familia? And you're like tired of having that basic conversation, to push yourself to the next level, you're going to have to deepen your vocabulary and practice speaking on a regular basis. Now, our next level, and this is probably where a lot of people want to get to, this is our level 3, and we consider this more of an intermediate level. This is the beginning of our intermediate stage, and we call it the confident conversationalist. And at this point, you're really starting to feel like you know what you're doing, right? Again, you're going to start to, at this phase, understand native speakers, and you'll find yourself kind of catching on to some things that when you were maybe at level 1 or 2, you were slow to pick up or completely went over your head, right? So at this phase, you've listened to enough Spanish, you've had enough conversations where you're starting to pick up some patterns of things that native speakers say, and the pace at which they speak, you're able to slow it down a little bit more in your head. All right, so you're not struggling at this point through every single conversation, but you do struggle if you find that there's maybe multiple speakers, multiple native speakers talking to each other, and you're part of the conversation. You might find yourself lost in certain parts because you're either missing the context, the vocabulary, or just the speed or the rate of conversation might be going too fast for you. But you do feel comfortable about connecting with people in Spanish. You're able to hold your own when you're chatting about familiar topics. So if someone is talking about something that you've never been exposed to before, you will feel like a fish out of water. But so long as it's something that you're familiar with and interested in, you will find yourself quite comfortable and quite confident in having a range of conversations that fit your interests. So again, this is at a stage where you're just at the beginning of the intermediate level, and you're really starting to hold your own in some of these conversations and understand native speakers a little bit better. So again, at this stage, you're learning how to use some of these verbs in present tense, past tense, and future tense. You are still struggling a lot at this stage with some of the irregular verbs or things that are used infrequently. There's still a lot of grammar that you don't know, and you find yourself regularly encountering things that you didn't notice before, and now you're realizing you want to learn more about. Right? You're like, oh, what is that? Oh, that's a direct object? Or what is the subjunctive, right? So at this stage, you're probably very, very curious about the mechanics of the language. But the thing I would caution you against if you're at level 3 is to not become a grammar nerd. So it can be very tempting to go into many deep dives on, all these obscure sort of grammar topics to kind of figure out every single thing that you come across and what the pattern is, and like, how do I master that? And do I memorize the whole verb chart, or do I learn all of the grammar? I really caution you against that because that can be overwhelming and also not very useful. The way that you want to approach things when you're at this level, so that you continue to make progress, is to really focus on strengthening your grammar and vocabulary in a conversational context and broaden the number of topics that you can talk about. So, for example, instead of saying, I want to learn the preterite past tense in Spanish, I want to learn all of the verbs in all of the subjects, and I want to learn all of the irregular verbs, and I want to be able to say them without thinking about it. Instead of that being the goal, you really want the goal to be something like, I want to have a conversation where I can talk about what I did last summer. This really gives you a much more natural way to learn vocabulary that isn't just related to an academic exercise. So you always want the things that you're learning to be relevant to your life and the people that you're actually going to be talking to. For example, if you're having a trip or a family event coming up, you want to tie your conversation goal to topics that you talk about with friends and family, or things that you might talk about while you're traveling. Who might you encounter that you want to have a conversation with? Who will you meet there? Who is going with you? All of these things are things that you want to think about when you're setting your conversational fluency goals, and you want every single goal, whether it's learning more vocabulary or mastering grammar, you want it all to be centered around conversations that you plan to have that are relevant to you and your life. So again, think about approaching grammar from that standpoint, and I think you'll find it a lot more beneficial. And the side effect of that is you also find it a lot easier to pick up on these patterns with grammar the more you use them in ways that are more natural for you. So when you're at this phase, I would set a goal to have a conversation that's longer than 30 minutes. So I would say maybe 45 minutes, maybe a full hour conversation, because you're going to be having more in-depth conversations at this stage. And you want to really identify those topics that you want to talk about. For example, in our Spanish language coaching, we do offer one-on-one coaching. We had a client recently who was very interested in a particular TV series, and they sort of mentioned it. And I'm like, well, this is something perfect to build a goal around, right? If you're going to be watching this show, you want to watch episodes of it. Watch those episodes with your language coach or with a tutor. Talk about what happened in the show, because isn't that what you do when you talk to your friends, right? Like, you're like, oh, I just saw the show last week. Did you see what happened last week? Can you believe they did this, right? You want to learn how to do all that in Spanish. So don't try to invent this kind of new personality where you become this academic all of a sudden and you're very focused on perfecting your grammar. Try to be you in Spanish. Listen to things that you're interested in. Listen to the Spanish versions of things that you normally listen to. For example, if you listen to the news, find the Latino station and listen to the news in Spanish. If you love music, obviously, if you're listening to Spanish con Salsa, broaden your horizons. Learn more songs, learn the lyrics of the songs, and talk about the meaning of the songs with an actual Spanish speaker from the country or the culture that's represented by the song. Right? So if you love Bad Bunny, you're excited about watching the Super Bowl, you want to know what he's talking about, have a conversation with someone from Puerto Rico. Don't talk to someone from Mexico about Bad Bunny. I mean, not that they haven't heard of him, but there's probably things they're not going to get about Puerto Rico because even though they might be familiar with the artist, they're not as familiar with the culture. So again, these are things that you want to think about when you're setting your goals, and you want to always center your goals around conversation. You want to be preparing for an actual interaction with a human being. That is what your goal should be centered on if you want to be fluent in Spanish and not just proficient in grammar. And there is a difference. Okay, so that is your level 3. Now, at this stage, your pronunciation is probably pretty good, but you're still probably making some mistakes that you never found out about when you were in level 1 or 2. And that's probably because native speakers or friends and family were like, oh, I understand what you're saying. And they'll tell you, oh, your Spanish is great. But you're probably like, yeah, but I still don't sound exactly like you sound, right? So that's another thing you want to work on when you're in the intermediate phase. As you move through learning and mastering more topics and more grammar concepts, you also want to focus on your pronunciation. How can you sound more natural? What are things that you're saying that sound more like an English speaker who is translating versus a native speaker? You want to begin to identify those things, but I don't want you to be obsessed with them. What you're really focusing on at level 3 is being able to express yourself about a variety of things that are important to you and expand the number of topics that you can discuss in Spanish. And that will naturally include grammar. So for example, I can't tell you about my vacation that I'm planning next year if I don't know the future tense. I can't tell you about my hopes and dreams for the future if I don't know the subjunctive mood. So you want to, again, approach it from what is something that I want to say in English or that I can say in English that I want to learn how to say in Spanish. And you want to be constantly challenging yourself at this phase so that you can get to our next level, which is our upper intermediate or advanced level, level 4, which we affectionately call Master Conversationalist. Right? At this level, if you don't feel like you're fluent, I don't know what you're doing. So at the Master Conversationalist level, you feel pretty comfortable with your ability to speak Spanish. You're comfortable with talking to native speakers. You've had tons of conversations at this point. you're really in a routine. Spanish is actually a part of your life, not just something that you're learning. It's no longer a foreign language. It's a language that's a part of your day-to-day reality. You are regularly having conversations in Spanish, but you are still learning different things. You are still learning from your mistakes. You are still learning about new places, new people, new topics. And at this point, you have a desire to really begin to perfect some of those things that maybe at level 2 and 3, you really should not have been obsessing about, right? So I know a lot of people say, like, you have to make mistakes, right? Speaking and making mistakes is how you learn. But once you get to level 4, you're really going to be at a point where you're still going to make mistakes, right? I still make mistakes all the time. But you're comfortable with that, and you're comfortable enough to know that these are things that you can work on. So I would suggest at this level, prioritizing those things you want to improve. So for example, if there's a pronunciation thing that's really hard for you, like for instance, the letter R, like the R in English, that's something that a lot of people, even at this level, might still not have down yet. Or if there's just certain things that you say that sound like, you have a foreign accent and you want to sort of flow a little bit more with your speech. I would suggest finding someone to model yourself after. I mean, you can do this at the earlier phases, because I also suggest that when you start this journey, you pick a type of Spanish to learn so that you're not overwhelmed by all the different accents and dialects and regional variations. Just pick one in the beginning. But when you're at sort of this level 4, you're going to start to notice the difference between accents in different countries. You're going to say, oh, that person must be from Costa Rica because they talk this way, or this person's definitely from Mexico, or that accent is from Argentina. You're going to be at that level where you can actually hear and not just notice there's something different, but you're going to know when you hear someone talk where they're from, or you'll suspect, right? One of the things I do, I'd like to ask people where they're from, or I'll just ask them, ¿Eres dominicana? Like, because people ask me the same question. So you kind of are in this flow where you start to understand the culture a bit more. You're more comfortable with your personality in Spanish. You're able to make jokes. You're able to tell stories. You're able to ask more in-depth questions and talk about things that matter. So at this phase, you can have a really deep conversation with family and friends about things that are important to you. You should be able to, if this is something you're focused on professionally, work on improving your vocabulary around your profession. So if you're a person that is learning Spanish for work purposes or for business purposes, at this stage, you really should be practicing how to conduct some of those activities in your professional life in Spanish as well. You also want to challenge yourself to do more things in the Spanish-speaking world. Attend events with Spanish speakers, right? Go to a country and go to a place where nothing is translated for you to English. Go to the place that's not the tourist place. Just kind of be in that space and, just be you in Spanish. And the more you challenge yourself to do those things, the more situations you put yourself in, the more you travel and meet different people, the more and more you will grow in your ability to speak the language. So at this stage, again, we're focused on those more advanced topics that you really couldn't tackle when you were at level 3. So you want to be learning the subjunctive. You want to be learning how to use it. You want to be mastering those. How do we use direct objects and indirect objects together with reflexive verbs, right? Some of these more advanced constructions. You're going to want to focus more on expressions in Spanish. So things that don't translate directly to English, that are expressions that native speakers use all the time. And again, you'll be learning some of these earlier on, but when you're at level 4, you really want to be understanding those, because a lot of times, no matter how much vocabulary you have, you will hear an expression, you'll go, what does that mean? Right? And I would say even in English, I was trying to think, there's something I was just thinking about the other day, off the cuff. Literally, I was listening to a podcast in English today, of all things, and they were saying, oh, this is like off the cuff, and someone might make an off the cuff remark and you get offended. Now, I know what that means in English, right? But I was like, wait a minute, where did that even come from? Like, why do we say that? So I actually looked it up, and apparently it's from, I think, the 1930s or 40s, when people were in movies or plays and they would write down their lines on the cuff of their shirt So they didn't have to kind of go back and read the script, and they would kind of glance at that instead of having to go back or get more direction. And it would be more for like shorter things. So it would seem like it was off the top of their head and spontaneous, but they were really literally reading it off the cuff of their shirt, right? Who knew? I don't know how to say that in Spanish, but like that's just a good example of like there's an infinite number of things to learn, right? You could learn many expressions, you could learn many different topics, but the thing at this point is you are really focused on those things that are important to you. So if you love a particular topic, I hope you're already subscribed to a podcast in that topic, but interact with the creator and with that audience. Be a part of that community. I know there was a podcast I listened to years ago when I first started learning. Well, it's more intermediate level. And it was all about like personal development, but it was in Spanish. And there are very few Spanish podcasts about personal development at that time. And it was actually based in Dominican Republic. And if you listen to this podcast, you know I love Dominican music, culture. So I was like, oh, wow, I get to listen to someone in Dominican Republic who currently lives there talking about a topic that I'm interested in. And so I subscribed to the podcast. When they would have events, like community events, I would show up live. I would be in the chat, like trying to hold my own, you know, even though it was a stretch for me at that time. So find things like that to do, that you're really integrating the language into your life, and that you really do become a master conversationalist. All right, so those are our levels of conversational fluency. So starting from, level 0, really, the silent language learner, where you're, just chatting with no one in Duolingo, to level 1, which is our conversation starter, where you feel comfortable starting conversations in Spanish, maybe answering a few basic questions with 1 or 2 word answers, but aren't super confident yet. Our level 2, which is our basic conversationalist, where you're comfortable with asking and answering basic questions about yourself and other people. To confident conversationalists, this is our intermediate level, where we're really starting to become comfortable with talking to native speakers, having longer conversations, and we're beginning to learn how to speak about some more advanced topics in our daily life so that we can explain them in a little bit more detail. And I will say you will spend more time at level 3 than you will at level 1 or 2. Right? Just because there's so much to learn, and the amount of practice that you'll need to really feel comfortable and confident to get to confident conversationalist level, it just takes a little bit longer, right? So to get to level 3. Level 1, you should get through probably within 90 days, right? Level 2, again, it kind of depends on you, but you can get through level 2 in 90 days to maybe even 120 days, right? Level 3, you'll probably be at a little bit longer. It's probably going to be about 6 months if you're really committed to it. And then getting to level 4, again, you're probably going to spend about a year there just getting all of those things mastered and working on your pronunciation and learning vocabulary. It will be a constant thing, but it'll all be fun because you'll be able to speak Spanish. And if that's your goal, to be fluent in Spanish, then this entire process should be an interesting process and hopefully not super frustrating. So I hope that gave you an idea of where you might be. And I'm sure listening to those descriptions, you suspect like, oh, I think I'm at level 3, or oh, I'm definitely at level 2. But if you want to know for sure, and you want some guidance from our team of certified language coaches, go to SpanishConsalsa.com/mylevel. That's SpanishConsalsa.com/mylevel. So that will send you to a page where you can schedule a free assessment with a member of our team, and we will give you our expert opinion on what your level is, right? So even if you think like, oh, I'm at this level, have a chat with our team. We will walk you through a very, very basic conversation. Should be a quick call, no more than 15 minutes, hopefully, unless you have a lot of questions. But we can sort of help orient you on where you are with your conversational Spanish fluency and give you some specific guidance on your next steps based on your preferences and your goals. So if that's something that you're interested in, again, SpanishConsalsa.com/mylevel, and you will be directed to schedule a free call. So you get a free assessment of your current Spanish fluency level with our team. So I hope you found this insightful. I hope this kind of helps you also get an idea of where you are and where you can go, and you can see what the potential is. So hopefully if you're at level 2, you're like, I got to get to level 3. If you're at level 3, you're thinking, okay, this is what I need to do to get to level 4. So hopefully this gave you a little bit of perspective and also some motivation to push yourself to get to the next level. So remember, what got you where you are is not going to get you where you want to go. So if you're stuck in one of these levels, I definitely encourage you to schedule a call with our team, SpanishConsalsa.com/mylevel, because we will give you advice on what to do to get out of that stuck place and get to the next level on your journey to Spanish fluency. As always, I hope something that you heard in this episode has taken you one step closer from Spanish beginner to bilingual. Hasta la próxima.
Thank you for listening to the Learn Spanish con Salsa podcast at learnspanishconsalsa.com.